Greetings, friends, crew member of our beloved, polluted, and unique spacecraft. We do not have another one, and we do not have any lifeboats for this one, so we must take care of it. So whatever you may be on that side of the screen, thank you for allowing us to be there with you. From Studio 3 of Venezuela Televisión, VTV, Victor Tango Victor, here we start Dossier, the Doyen program of international satellite television for the Western Hemisphere. And once again, Mr. Trump is part of the news. The man who, after buying everything bought the presidency, and now believes that he can play commander-in-chief. And it comes with his position, and it's dangerous. Well, he's now paying attention to Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is historically important, religiously important, and of course economically important. And this may be a balance in a move of mutual benefit, because they don't forgive us for creating the OPEC, the creators of the OPEC. So we also have a sovereign attitude, and we've said ad nauseum that the biggest oil reserve in the world is not in Saudi Arabia, but here in Venezuela. And we don't pay any respects to the maniac in the White House. So let's take a look at the event in full development. And these are the images that we've selected for you. So may they be the ones that take us to the international agenda. We're going to start with something important.
It's a mean, nasty world out there.
Mike Pompeo, Secretary of State, said, "This is a nasty world out there in the Middle East particularly. There are important interests of the United States to keep the Americans safe, to protect the Americans, not only the Americans here, but the Americans who travel and work, doing business in the Middle East. And it's the mandate of the President and the Department of State to ensure that we have policies that reaffirm national security for the United States. As the President said today, the United States continue keeping a relationship with the Saudi Arabian Kingdom, which is an important partner. Their people have a commitment that the President took today. Is a historical commitment, and it's vital for national security. National security of the United States. We want to ensure that we will not be concerned about the USA with all the strategic relations or decisions that we make with everyone who works around the world.
The murder of Jamal Khashoggi.
There's been a lot of effort with determination of facts surrounding to the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. A lot of resources for the United States have been dedicated to the determination of facts from our capacity in order to know what happened there. The United States had a strong answer. We sanctioned 17 people about this investigation, and we are also committed to place the interest of national security of the United States as well as all the actions for this context in the first plane, and to do this correctly so the United States can continue growing. And when we do so, the world will be better, and the Middle East will also be doing better.
The contract negotiations, we are working diligently on the remainder of those. We actually hope that number will end up being even greater.
In some of these contracts, we've been working diligently in the sector, and we hope that the number will increase. Answering another question, he said, "I don't know when this negotiations will end, but they're very good." And the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia are complementing each other. Saudi Arabia is a great buyer of American firearms. We also discussed about the Khashoggi case and need to work together. The conflict continues in Syria, and we support the revitalization of national security. And this is something for the public interest. Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Kabul, speaking about the Khashoggi case.
Thank you all.
That's it, no questions. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Cavusoglu, meeting the Department of State, and the Democrats will approve the use of Ivanka Trump's private email for the work of the government. But I want to introduce someone that since day one was smart. My daughter is smart, even though she's my daughter. She did great there. And she said, "Hi, Missouri, we love you, lots of love. We're fighting for you all these days. The president, this administration, we fight so that all Americans can get the American dream and for this to happen."
Thank you for your energy. It's just an amazing honor. We love you.
Thank you for your energy. It's just an amazing honor. Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner we're now up in their profile for this. Ivanka Trump out the building in order to attend the conference of entrepreneurs supported by Washington.
But it's really amazing what's happening with regard to space and our country. Wages effectively went down. Now, for the first time in a long time, they're starting to go up for people. They really take advantage of it. They do a great job.
Donald Trump spoke about difficult topics. The Department of Justice had the mails of Clinton, and certainly we cannot believe that they can investigate the new crimes of Hillary Clinton that take place all the time. So important things he's saying. Hillary created an illegal server with the purpose of protecting her criminal justice, of being protected from the public, and this did not work. Well, this simply puts it in a situation of a lot of tension to all those who arrived at the White House. So here she is. Those who right now are part of the headlines. Ivanka Trump listening to her father, and Ivanka Trump with the advisor Jared Kushner. And now, even though the image is frozen, shows concerned faces. Problems have bounced back and have come back. And Ivanka Trump participates in a roundtable with Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada. She's also upping her profile in the responsibility granted by her father, the president. She seems quite comfortable with the situation so far. Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner held activities together, and in Abington, Virginia, the candidate Donald Trump said, "It's very sad, and I think there's going to be something similar about it, for us to adapt to reality that is that's not the one that we have done for our country, but after the FBI and the Department of Justice wipe the crimes of Clinton, we cannot trust that they could investigate new crimes of Hillary Clinton that take place all the time."
Fairly vast number. Oh, I want to see the ones that what I really would like to see, that we have to see the 33,000. Can you imagine? Remember, she said, I think it was for her wedding, the wedding.
It's very sad. I think that yesterday there was a million, a very vast number. I want you to see that this is about 33,000. Imagine that she said that it was for her wedding, Chelsea's wedding, then for yoga classes. 33,000 emails. That's a lot of yoga, and she's using this politically. Then the FBI wiped this out, and Hillary created a legal server to protect her criminal activity from being part of the public opinion, and this did not work for her.
Hillary set up an illegal server for the obvious purpose of shielding her criminal conduct from public disclosure and exposure. Hillary Clinton is the most corrupt person ever to run for the presidency.
Hillary Clinton is the most corrupt person ever to run for the presidency. So, very thick words. Hillary Clinton's practice as Secretary of State led to an investigation of the FBI. This is true, but taking it so far from part of the president, well, immigrants prevent themselves to try to arrive to the States. and looking for asylum, of course. A general list of migrants living in shelters, some of them being pushed, some of them with whatever they have. Anyone who's a danger can present in any place of the American territory, because this is how the law was described. If there's someone who's behind you, you don't have to knock on the door to go in. This is for the security of everyone, to write it as this. What Trump tried to do was telling the people, if you are going to come in like this, we will not respect the right of asylum. We knew that he was going to lose with his argument, but the good thing is that he was losing very quickly. At sundown, a lot of immigrants waiting to depart. There are a list of migrants gathered together, women giving water bottles to migrants who are marching. Jairo Bando from Honduras, who's arriving in the States after the order. And he said, if it's not like this, then this is very good news for us. I am very happy because if the judge said so, speaking about what Trump said, this is good for all of us. It's good news for all of us. And we are happy because if the judge said so and he fulfills this, then it's great for all of us. Migrants walking, taking everything they can on their shoulders, and some of them getting there however they can, and even with disabilities, but they don't surrender. So hundreds of migrants from Central America walked from Mexicali to Tijuana to join the biggest caravan that is meeting in order to look for the opportunity of getting asylum in the States. They started marching at sundown, and some of them were even carrying babies. Doctors Without Borders said that the accusations of Italy are weird and unproportionate. The video shows the manager of Doctors Without Borders, Gabriel Eminent, speaking about accusations of toxic waste. He said, we want to highlight about this process that the accusation against us seems to be strange and unproportionate. This line of events that lasted for 1.5 years, the last 2 years, has already produced a very strong impact on our capacity of getting money and support from private donors. And they have damaged our reputation of Doctors Without Borders and how people see us, and we still have open wounds in our skin about this matter of fact. So the manager of the organization Doctors Without Borders, Gabriel Eminent, said this. Well, subjects of war crimes in the Central African Republic will be in the court as Alfred Jacket firing a weapon in a parliamentary session of security. He was taken by the police in a track. This is Banki, Central African Republic. And Alfred Jacket, who shot during the session of the chamber, follow-up system, surrounded by security, the police, the balcony of National Assembly. So someone who is accused of war crimes as well as torture of Muslims will have his first appearance in International Penal Court on Friday, November 23rd. Alfred Jacket, an exercising member of the Parliament of the Central African Republic, brought to The Hague on Sunday, will present a statement pleading guilty, but will try to provide a statement if he wishes to do so. And tension continues on the ground. Jacket was once nicknamed Rambo. Let me clarify something. This could be part of the campaign against the government of Vladimir Putin. This is the alleged version. Russian veterans seek for an appeal of the International Penal Court about mercenaries. This shows an interview before the appeal on the International Court of Justice about how Russians acted, and this is a file that shows the organization of veterans holding a meeting, and Evgeny Savayev, citizens being sought by illegal armed groups They are structures of military companies of Russia that belong to private citizens, and those who are part of this have not signed any professional agreements or contract with government agencies or related to the government or agencies for military operations. So it's a flight route from Russia to Syria, and civilians working in military companies, private military companies, and the countries where they have returned and where they continue requesting support their countries of Syria, Libya, northern side of Sudan, Gabon, Yemen. I can't remember all of them right now.
Bueno, en todo caso, varios residentes de la villa de Kedrovoye, como Valentina Verdes, de 80 años.
And Valentina Verdes, these are some dramatic statements of what this person is saying. Another humanitarian problem that we don't know who are answering. There she is showing pictures of her children, thinking about how she can create a new life. Showing the pictures, Reuters, of their family in her hands. The projection of soldiers with their silhouettes. They are not here. They have died. And here, they are discussing about the possibility of submitting resources for the International Court of Law for a real investigation. So they show what they have from those who are missing allegedly from their families. Leonid Ivashov, a retired general, said they are sending the army that they send as a private company of the militia, and this has not been officially formalized. They just want to get benefits, nothing else. And there's a big business behind this. This is mentioned by a high-rank general. The government is forced to give these people social guarantees, legal guarantees, and taking care of these families. And the same thing in case of death or serious injuries. This is the duty of every government. These are companies that work with mercenaries that pay good amounts. The manager of the commission of this meeting, Yevgeny Shavanev, also said, we wondered in June, we called all security organizations that work and don't work for the presidential administration, and their answer was, there aren't any private military companies in Russia. But these images of Russian planes throwing bombs over Syria, it's a file of 11 December 2017. Russian residents and Vladimir Putin speaking to the citizens at the platform of an airport, shaking hands with some members of the military, and Bashar al-Assad, Syrian president. So the groups that represent the veterans of Russia have requested international court to investigate their situation. In ambulance and security personnel in the site of an explosion were Kabul. Over 50 people killed in a banquet saloon. Afghanistan, November 20, 2018. An ambulance arriving at the site of the explosion. Security staff of Afghanistan, the outside of the Uranus Hotel that were there to bomb. A lot of ambulances getting there with security staff. And a witness, Rohullah Yannihail, said, I wanted to get into the hotel to be part of the ceremony, but I heard a call from a family member who said there was an explosion in the hotel and that his children were hurt. Now I am taking care of my friends that were wounded by the explosion, but the hospitals are not allowing anyone else in. It's a never-ending drama. It's one of the ways of creating chaos, violence, to enrage the people.
Bueno, un ingeniero principal de Uganda disfruta trabajar en un proyecto importante financiado.
An engineer of Uganda enjoys being part of a project financed by China. Andrew Kamagara, technical engineer of hydroelectric projects, he said, I work in Karuma Agropire and I'm a technical engineer. Many people work at this office, wearing all the necessary apparel. And in the vehicle, they head towards the place. Andrew Kamagara, technical engineer of the project, said, right now, we oversee the construction to see the consistency between the blueprint and what's really being built on site. Kamagara and his co-workers, he said a lot of people think that most Chinese people are very strict at the workplace, and working with them was going to be very difficult. The Chinese are very good at what they do. They're very good at interacting, and most of the time the reality is that we get along very well. Andrew Kagamara, technical engineer for the project of the hydroelectrical Karuma, showing that they don't only share work time, but also they exercise so they can keep in shape. And he added, it's nice to be famous because when you are surrounded by fame, people look at you somehow. See you dancing with Chinese dancers and also doing exercise. This is healthy beyond the working hours that we have. Behind me, the reality is working wonders because we're getting as close as possible to the Chinese. And speaking about this, China and the Philippines agreed to improve their links and to build together the project of the Belt and the Route that we have mentioned so many times. President Xi Jinping and Rodrigo Duterte from Philippines shaking hands, and therefore the pictures. And Xi with a floral bouquet. It was a very high-level meeting, and it was very successful. The meeting with Rodrigo Duterte and Xi Jinping, both leaders, reached a significant agreement for the creation of bilateral agreements for mutual respect, sincerity, cooperation that could lead for mutual benefit. Once again, Xi is delighted to visit the Philippines and feels happy with the warm welcome of the Philippines and due to the happy smiles of the children. They are near neighbors with exchange that go back thousands of years. They said that amnesty as well as cooperation where both win are the only right option for both countries. The Chinese president said that there have been deep exchanges of their perspectives about bilateral relationships and topics of common interest with Duterte in the 6 meetings that have been held in 2 last years, as well as a consolidated friendship. China is willing to continue with their friendship and continue with cooperation so that both countries can always be good neighbors, good friends, good partners, and share the prosperity. The improvement of bilateral relationships satisfies the needs of their development as well as the expectations of both countries, as mentioned by Xi, and he requested both parties to improve the strategic views on bilateral relationships between the two presidents that want to have exchange at every level and consolidate mutual confidence for strategy exchange of documents. In a very important ceremony, China supports the Philippines in the election of development.
两国元首共同会见了记者。当天下午，习近平还向菲律宾国父黎刹纪念碑敬献花圈。
When saying that China and the Philippines share a lot of common interest in the South Sea of China, he said both countries can continue managing their differences through friendly consultations. Mother hematopoietic cells from China. Chinese scientists reached great progress in investigation with cells. The Institute of Nutrition and Health of Shanghai under the Academy of Science of China is working with this. The animation shows blood flow as well as hematopoietic blood cells. A person of the Chinese Academy of Science said, we were able to find a type of macrophage that can recognize and induce the location of mother cells in vivo. We call this cellular cell. Doctors in the laboratory and some experiments being done. In parallel, in London, Nathalie Lebot, the main director of Nature, said, studies showed an unprecedented view about how the location of stem cells in vivo were found and also in live animals. This could also be key in order to improve the success of a transplantation of bone marrow in the future. In Shanghai, coverage of Chinese TV shows different press conferences that announce the results of the investigations of the team, as well as different attendees. Some slides that show the results of the investigation. And Chinese scientists have analyzed the comprehensive program of stem cells for the first time in the world, with results published by the British magazine Nature on Tuesday. And China expects that the meeting of the Prime Minister of Germany will strengthen the links between both countries. The spokesman said this year Li Keqiang, Prime Minister of China, and Angela Merkel exchanged visits, and the fifth round of intergovernment consultations between China and Germany that has led to fruitful results that show the depth and level of bilateral relationships.
推动开放型世界经济做出积极的努力，为世界注入更多的稳定。
Germany is the main strategic partner for all dimensions. They should strengthen coordination and cooperation and jointly support multilateralism and the system of free trade, having active efforts to promote the economy and bring more stability to the world.
特别是深化中德中欧在经贸、投资、财经、制造业、数字化等领域的务实合作，以及产业创新合作。
Then he said, we hope that the visit of the Vice Prime Minister Yu He to Germany will help improve trust of the strategic mutual policy to promote a strategic cooperation in every aspect from China to Europe and the world. And specifically, it is expected to deepen pragmatic cooperation for finance and other matters. And today, we say goodbye to our beloved friend, Commander Fausto, diplomatic representative in Cuba. And about this, let us remember the time that we had the chance to interview him. Secretary General of UNASUR 2012-2014, Minister of Electric Energy of Venezuela, has had different positions in the government President Hugo Chavez, as Minister of Energy and Mines, Chancellor, Minister of Foreign Relations, Minister of Economy and Finance, Secretary General of the Organization of Oil Exporting Countries OPEC, President of PDVSA in Cuba. And for those who know about his long and legendary trajectory, he is Commander Fausto during the tough times of the guerrilla. Thank you, Walter. So what's the reality that we're facing today about this, which is the backbone of the country? We need to consider different scenarios and how they are related one with the other. Oil is an exporting product, so it's basically the umbilical cord of Venezuela with the world's economy. And where the oil goes, the Venezuelan economy goes. So at this moment, we are having a period of stability in the markets around the world. The global growth is now stable due to the demand for energy, which represents up to 30% of this global growth, which has also stabilized. And within this, the demand of oil as an important energy source. Around 34% of the total amount of energy that's used in the world. So supply and demand, right? Yes, this is stable right now. And in the case of Venezuela, there's an important position as part of the big providers of energy. And there will be a moment where we will be able to export LPG. These are something that we have already considered with PDVSA. And it's going to be great progress because we have a lot of this. This was previously underestimated, right? And now gas is a very important product. Well, the emphasis is the search and production of oil because technologies for taking advantage of gas are not very old, and there are countries, for example, the Middle East, that have been able to establish machines that liquefy glass, and this means a lot of investment. So we should also have a fleet for gas vessels, but these are very expensive vessels. They are bumped. When you see one of them, you often need to go far from them because they're very, very dangerous. Often, operations with gas are done away from the coast because there's a potential danger to the intel. Still, the main business that we have is oil, liquid petroleum, but today's a strategy thinking about taking a higher advantage of the one that we're taking of today. Then we can also take advantage of the riches in gas of the country. But overall, the current production level is within the OPEC limits. I think that we can even increase some of it in order to get closer to 2 million barrels. We are close. So we can even increase the production capacity up to 2 million or even 3 million as we had when I was the president of PDVSA. But this is still the crème de la crème of the big leagues, right? Yes, of course, Venezuela is important due to two things, due to the reserves that we have, the biggest in the world, as well as the geostrategic location that we have. You've mentioned this thousands of times. Yes, we say this ad nauseum because we need to be aware of how they're applying what they do. Saudi petroleum, 45 days away, while R is very close. Just this is called the geographic rent, right? Yes, because the transportation cost give us a competitive advantage. Yes, a great advantage, because the production cost of the production of oil, then you need to add the cost of transportation. That's why Venezuelan oil always has a competitive advantage in the American market with other types of petroleum coming from Africa or Arab countries. And with this character, with Mr. Trump, now President of the States, what are the perspectives we may have? Well, he has spoken about a series of measures in the financial area against Venezuela. So far, not so successful, because these measures are not good not only for those who are directly affected, but also for many others who have important relationships with the ones that are affected. The oil lobby of the States will be affected by this, of course, and other sectors, other financial sectors as well. Entrepreneurs want their company to have a cash flow and to have gains. And Venezuela is a very important partner globally. We are strategically important, not only as providers of energy, but also business-wise for those who invest in Venezuela with any of the areas that make this feasible in this country. So about this, we can say that there's a situation of stability. PDVSA has projects in order to grow, to increase production up to the limits allowed by the OPEC, and also to supply internal markets, which is extremely important as well. They are appropriately supplied, of course. And now we have a plan to recover the capacity of recuperation to provide the internal market and also have some surplus to export to our traditional customers, mainly the Caribbean. We used to export 100,000 barrels of products. Have we generated antibodies against the possibility of sabotage in our main industry? No, so far, no, this is not part. It has not changed. There are some people who are unhappy with this, and they finally go. And there are cases that have high demand in other parts of the continent and the world. And of course, there are two factors that need to be considered. On the one hand, salaries in dollars that are often higher than the ones in PDVSA. On the other hand, the awareness. What's the awareness of people of loving Venezuela, loving the company as well? There's important numbers in PDVSA that keep these characteristics, and the difficulties are there. Even pensioners who have this position. We have a lot of pensioners that have a lot of experience that were important factors in the recovery of production and the general activities of PDVSA. This was exciting because some people were happily retired and then they were willing to work for the company that was part of their life. Yes, and they did so very successfully. I remember the case of Ivan Hernandez, who was retired for years after working decades serving the company. I was speaking with him in PDVSA. It was with CRP, and he created a plan. He devised the most perfectly devised plan in my life that I've seen, and all the steps were perfectly executed. Everything was accurately executed. And there are a lot of important people who have done the same thing. Roberto Capriles was also extremely important for the recovery of Palito. And then there's the number of people that show the work of thousands and thousands of workers of PDVSA that were against this, and that today they are there, and they face problems as well. There was a time when this highly technological company had a president that was using a very old-fashioned phone. And then this was created with a lot of advisory, and they were unable to do it. They had control of all the management, and there were people committed with the coup. Coup from an oil perspective. There were two coups, an oil coup and a petroleum coup, and then paralyzed the activities back then. And after this, which was supposed to stop Chavez's government, it was not the case. Well, there's a lot of history here. Created from a story that was extremely important at some process that then reset the industry and facing new problems as the ones that we're facing today for the oil activity in Venezuela. The fact that it was one of the most automated oil companies in the world led to the fact that by using the electronic brain, paralyzed everything and led to the point where they need to fill a bank warehouse with an authorization. Well, there's a lot of automation from different operations, including loading vessels to export oil. And this has been one of the reasons that led to the stoppage of the IT system. But everything was operated with this electronic system that was perfectly applied, but that leads to this difficult to correct effect, and we were able to correct them with external support. I remember a workmate that now holds a very important position with a group of young people that are working here in order to restructure and make it operational again, the e-system. So this was a cyber war. Right, it was. This was a war. Well, the only thing that was missing were the bullets, but everything else happened. It was a high-level confrontation because the destiny was going to happen was at stake. Here there was a military coup d'etat that, when it failed, made the right wing unable to control the armed forces. It was a coup against PDVSA that led to the right wing to lose the strength that they had here. And ever since, it was weakened and tried to find a different way of getting to power, and they failed systematically. Today, they try to do so in significant moments of violence as the Guarimbas. And we're going to see what are the new plans that they have for the presidential election and for the future of the country. Well, this is the penthouse of the headquarters of one of the most important oil companies in the world. This represents whoever has the responsibility as yours, who is an honorary president, because of everything you've done. This shows that you are playing in the big leagues of world geopolitics. There are not precisions here that don't have international repercussions. So how do you work with these two dimensions? One of the matters that I have highlighted with the oil workers is the role that they fulfill, which is not the role of any worker. Today, the world is still being moved by oil, and a very high percentage of the oil that moves the world comes from Venezuela. It comes from the productive effort of the workers of Venezuela. So they are playing a role that has planetary dimensions. I'm not sure that they are aware of this. However, the facts show that this is the case. And thus, you can highlight the importance of bringing together the human forces in PDVSA, the talent, the experience, the capacity, that even though there have been a lot of problems before and also recently, mainly in the management of the company, that due to the relentless work of the workers and also some people in the management allow the company to be active and continue producing and fulfill the production goals for this year that we have previously mentioned. So I think that it's still the leading company in the field of economy and other areas in Venezuela. Now, there was a concept here that was managed as a difference in class even, which was the so-called the higher payroll. I don't know if it was famous or infamous, the higher payroll. Well, here there was a policy back then that within the neoliberal perspective was about creating a sort of elite that was highly qualified, that spoke other languages, had courses abroad, and from a theoretical technical perspective, they were perfectly trained, and they were used to flying private jets. Yes, but isolated from the reality of the people. So it was an island divided from the reality of the people. And this is what led to a false appreciation of the reality of the country, a false appreciation of the perspective of the government and the workers of the company. And then there was an actual division of elites, the higher payroll. A group of classifications that established a division, a hierarchy in the company. Today, the company has meetings between the presidency, the board, and the workers. And these are the provisions of the company, that higher positions should go to the field to see the activity and to really feel and become part of the reality. Now, undoubtedly, these people played in the big leagues at the planetary scale in the world of energy, which is the one that has led to wars, that has changed the maps. Did they feel this global elite that wants to dominate the country? I think that due to all the things that they did, they were perfectly identified with the values, the principles of mainly North Americans. Some were trained in France and England, and all this group of views were mixed together in an elite of the oil policy, and specifically of the role that they fulfilled. They were highly trained. They were quick to find work abroad. Were there countries that gathered this elite? Yes, countries in the Middle East, United States. Some even went to Colombia. And other countries of our continent. Were you able to fill this with the new generation who wanted to get to these positions? There was a phenomenon that was not only bringing other people to these positions of other members of the company. It was a very, not only promotions, but a company like this always thinks about the next generation. Not only one, but many, of course. Beyond this, there were some pensioners that came back to the company. This is extremely important. Those, the pensioners who gave their life for this and then they retired. When they saw this attack on sovereignty, they came back. Yes, we called some of them. They answered the call. Some at the beginning didn't want to come, but then they were convinced, and they did an excellent work, and they contributed at a very high degree to the recovery of operations. So it was a combination of factors that were rightly managed at a given point that led to the effect that we are already aware of. How are we doing right now about the installed capacity, the demand of the market, and the possibility of increasing our production? The market is doing all right because there's a sustainable growth in global economy, not with the strong curves as we saw before with the growth of China and India, but it continues growing global economy. Global economy continues growing due to demand of energy and, of course, due to the demand for oil. And about this, we place Venezuela. This is on the demand side. And on the side of production, there are different crises that have affected PDVSA. And the main factor today, after the problems that we had with payroll, was the financial problem, because the financial sectors that gave us the money had a set of conditions that are only for negotiations, sometimes hard negotiations. So when they see that you're weak, they feel that they can get better conditions and more benefits. So then you have to fight and know how to act at this moment in order to avoid them from imposing conditions that would affect national sovereignty, which is something that is debated, which is, for example, arbitration, trials, and when they are decided under which law. And in the past, we spoke about this broadly because all this were brought to the International Chamber of Commerce of arbitration for a given institution or for institution of the United States or Paris. And this is what happened. We studied the problem of oil, so we opposed this decision. So these are actors that are always present in negotiations, because the one who owns the money believes that he's not always certain if he's subject to local arbitration or to arbitration abroad. So these are some of the problems that are permanently being negotiated for this matter. Now, under this change of president in the White House, and now with Trump, who bought everything because Ivan wanted to buy the presidency and was able to do so, not because he did not get the votes, but because there are methods to get there. Those of us who have studied the lobbies in the United States know how this works and how certain methods of advertising can create favorable reactions to certain interests. I've studied this in the school of the Kennedys, the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy. And then we studied the role of the lobby when making decisions for foreign policy. And together with the lobby of oil and the weapon manufacturers, they are the ones that really move the chains in this field. So what can we expect with someone as Trump, with an ego as big as you can see? And the only thing that he's missing, beyond being the president, is the other role, that the one he never speaks about, but I'm concerned, which is being the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. And there have been a lot of wars on oil. Well, about the first thing, there have been a group of actions on the financial side to create problems to PDVSA and our country as well. That's why President Maduro has announced a group of measures that want to neutralize the attack of the United States and create new destinations to create a flow on the financial operations of Venezuela. This is the first comment that has been shown in the media, and it's perfectly understandable. About the military plans, I think that this is also part of Trump's agenda, and he has mentioned this publicly, and he has to think twice about this. Because attacking Venezuela, beyond the obvious reaction that would happen in our country, would only be for the borders of Venezuela or will spread around the region. Here's social, political conditions in the region could lead to a fuse igniting everything. So he must measure any military action that he wants to take. Because the States already, in the last wars, they're not sending their own people to die in the battlefields. They hire companies. The war is an essentially commercial, entrepreneurial problem right now. There are companies that enroll people, they trade them, and they send them to die in the battlefield. So we should see the conditions under which they will fight a war. Maybe they will try to have a flash war. We're going to see what happens. I would like to thank you on behalf of the team for welcoming us. First of all, for being in our studio, and then for welcoming us in the penthouse of the headquarters of the big energy power of the planet. We have to be realistic. It's an honor. Thank you very much. This is a great way of remembering my old good friend. And now I remember something that is part of a classic that says life should be lived in such a way that it should be remembered after life. And this is one of the examples. He was a great friend, a great fighter, a man that set his ideas and his chest together, even in combat. Commander Fausto. That was his war name. And I would like to share with you, with all the mail that I've received, I would like to speak about this one that we misplaced. This doesn't happen often. Sometimes it's difficult for me to get up to date with everything you send, but I read everything. This was something special, however. Embassy of Cuba, Caracas, Venezuela, Caracas, November 7, 2018. Walter Martinez, producer and host of Dossier. Dear Walter, I have the honor of addressing you in order to give you a t-shirt with a graphic message that is part of the claim of the Cuban people and solidarity of the blockade on our country. As you know, on November 1st, the General Assembly of the United Nations, there was a voting for the resolution, the need to end the blocking imposed by the United States of America against Cuba, which, as in years before, was supported by the countries of the world. May this present acknowledge your permanent solidarity and the way of addressing this policy that is going to be executed against the Venezuelan people, violating the elemental principles of international law. I send you my warmest regards. Rogelio Polanco Fuentes, Ambassador of the Republic of Cuba. And this t-shirt also shows the symbol of the fight against the blockade. The out-of-fashion blockade due to the open wounds of those who wanted to transform Cuba into their backyard and were unable to do it. So, whatever the case may be, my team and myself, with our words, want to pay tribute to Compañero Fausto, who's now in another dimension, and who made a reality of living his life in such a way that it will remain after his death. So, in order to say goodbye to Fausto, how was this? How? May it be like this. And as a Christian and Catholic, our prayers are there. And our deepest solidarity with the people around him. Where we may be on that side of the screen, thank you for allowing us to be there with you. From Studio 3 of Venezolana Televisión, here I close another dossier, the Doyen program in all the Western Hemisphere of international satellite information. This was Walter Martinez, producer and host. Director, the floor is all yours.